Today, we are joined by Shruti Rai for Meet the Entrepreneur series. Shruti is the Chief Growth Officer and co-founder at Novus, which is the new sustainable banking app. So, Shruti, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. Great to be here.
Tell us more about Novus and how you set the company up.
Yeah. So, before I think getting to Novus, just a quick background about myself, because that will kind of explain the story a bit better. So I'm originally from India, born and raised there, moved to the US a few years ago to get my MBA. Got my MBA and then started working at another fintech that was in the money transfer space, but extremely mission driven. So it was a great first job to have out of business school and learn sort of everything in terms of good company values and growth marketing, because that's what I do professionally. So understanding how to scale a startup from zero to a few million users. It was great to be there and witness that with my first employer after business school. But after that, I decided to move to London, and I was responsible initially for the same company to expand their operations into Europe. But after a few years, I was like, I want something new in my life. So decided to join a crypto startup after that. Liked it, but my kind of passion is consumer tech, and I just enjoy doing marketing for a consumer app a lot more. So I was looking around for, okay, what is my next move going to be? I really enjoyed the whole startup experience. I know I want to be in the consumer space, and I know that fintech is the industry I understand best. So how can I combine all of that with a mission that's larger than just making an easy to use app? So luckily I met my other co-founders who were kind of looking for somebody like me. So we were destined to meet each other during the pandemic. So it's been almost a year since we first had a Zoom call with my other co-founders. And they explained me what they were thinking on, and the mission of the company was just something right, that felt right to build. So that's how we started Novus. But the whole idea and the mission behind Novus is to build an impact banking app, as we call it. And the reason we call it impact banking instead of digital banking is no matter what you do within the app, there is an engine that generates impact on the user's behalf. So it could be a payment that you make within the app, or a purchase, because we've got a marketplace within the app, so a purchase within the marketplace. Every time any transaction that happens creates a part of that impact that we talk about. So we are basically sharing a part of our revenue across different impact causes beyond just planting trees, because that's an easy way these days for companies to just tick the box of giving back from a climate standpoint. But we have got 10 different causes that we work with.
I mean, to set up a fintech company, well, in itself is challenging, but let alone, at the start of the pandemic or throughout the pandemic. I mean, that must have been exceptionally challenging for you and the team. Has the pandemic affected you in any way?
Yeah, it's kind of been there. I do miss, because we have been in the office a few times since things have started to reopen. And when you are in the office, you realize how much faster it can make the small conversations that you can have on the side table can make things move a lot faster, that you have to kind of write it down on a text and wait for somebody to respond. So those kind of micro conversations are the part I would say that is a bit annoying about having to work remotely, because you have to write everything down. But because all of us are kind of a remote first preference, it's not been that bad in terms of communicating with each other and moving things forward. So as a company also, we are built with a remote first model. So we will have an office in London, but it's only if you want to come into the office for a team get together or a team meeting or something like that. But yeah, fintech in the UK, I think it's a bit different from building a fintech in some of the other parts of the world. I feel the regulatory environment in the UK is a lot more friendlier for us to make it happen. But I in my experience of working in some other countries, it would have been a lot more challenging to get anything off the ground. So that way UK has been a good market for us. And that's the reason we chose UK as well for our launch market.
The finance industry doesn't seem to be that big on sustainability. How is Novus challenging that notion?
Yeah, so for whatever reason, why sustainability was in the back burner for most financial services, I think it was primarily because consumers weren't asking questions about what happens when I deposit my money with my bank. Like, it's not just sitting in there. They are using your money to fund different projects and make money. But now with a growing sort of growing awareness, first of all, that we need to do something about climate change. Now people have started asking questions that how can I help as an individual, but also how can I demand more from the institutions that I work with? And financial services is kind of in the center of every business, every individual out there. So now it has become more of a conversation, luckily for us, but also even if you talk about any business, everybody's talking about how they can go carbon neutral. And in order to go carbon neutral, they have to find a company that can help them go carbon neutral. And a lot of these are big in financial services. So it's kind of compulsory that we will have to start thinking about it. But until now, I think we were all enjoying the ignorance from the consumer standpoint of not being able to ask those questions because they weren't made aware in the first place that how we used your money. So there was no transparency.
Do you think the recent COP26 in Glasgow has had any sort of major impact on this?
I think it has become more of a mainstream conversation now. In terms of the developments that were happening in the space, again, like from the government standpoint, there's now a more clearer agenda than it was before on how you can finance, for example, greener projects more easily compared to what it was before. Even as, like, for example, if I wanted to install a solar panel or better heating resistant equipment in my house, I could do that and get a grant from the government. So I think there's more of that and more government focused initiatives that have come out at the back of COP26. But if you remove the government stuff, there has been things happening in the fintech space over the last year, really. More at the back of the pandemic than back of COP26. But COP26 has helped us to kind of talk to any day-to-day consumer now and be able to have that conversation with them and tell them the value of investing money in more greener ways.
Who is your biggest competitor?
It's a bunch of different competitors that we kind of are trying to tackle across different features, because we are not just a banking app. We are trying to build a few different features around the conscious consumer, and how we define conscious consumer as a company is anybody who is willing to pay a premium to buy a product or service that's better for the environment. So we are building an app for this particular user who is already aware that they need to do something but don't have the tools to take action. And we want to build kind of a super app in the future. And we are starting with digital banking, but that's not going to be the only thing. Even as part of our launch app, we have got banking features, but we have also got a marketplace where you can find different sustainable and ethical brands. And we have got the whole donation mechanism where you can donate these coins that you're earning to different causes. So there are like 3 different kind of features as part of the launch app. So depending upon which feature, we are competing with different players. So on the digital banking side, obviously there are established players in the market like Monzo, Revolut, Starling. But in the carbon, and then we also do carbon tracking and offsetting, which is its own vertical now because there are a lot of players coming up that are just doing carbon tracking and offsetting. So it's kind of a combination of different competitors at different levels, but there's no clear sort of super app or multi-feature app currently that we directly compete with, because in the West, for whatever reason, super apps never became a thing. And we are trying to make it for the conscious consumer as one of the first players.
Sounds extremely complex, very complex. So what is your actual business model?
On the revenue side, we make money on each of these different aspects that I spoke about. So I would say let's break it down into 5 sort of revenue streams. One is the interchange payments, which is a simple one where a Monzo or Revolut, for example, if you're using their card right now, every time you make a payment, they make a percentage of that payment as revenue, but it's a very, very small margin. So you can't sustain a whole business based on that revenue stream, but that's one part of the revenue. The second is we are launching with a sort of a early bird plan where we're not charging a membership fee, but in the future, we do want to charge some level of membership fee, depending upon what the user is comfortable paying. It will start from something as nominal as £1 a month. And we have done some research on that, and we have seen like people are willing to pay if an app can help them make more impact. So the membership is the second one. And then the whole carbon tracking offsetting aspect of it. So users can check their carbon footprint for free. So for example, if you made a payment for a flight on the Novus app, you will see the payment and you will also see how much carbon you created as part of the payment. But if you chose to offset that payment, then you can do so as well in the app. And if you decide to do that, then we charge a bit of commission to facilitate the transactions. That's another revenue stream. But the main one is the brand commission part. So if you are choosing to shop your next pair of jeans from one of our brand partners, which are a more ethical business, then we make money from that brand as a commission fee to introduce this user to the brand. So that's another one. We don't have investments as part of our launch app, but that's in Q1 of next year. So that will again become a major part of the revenue stream, because if we are investing on your behalf, then we will take a performance fee or some sort of management fee on the return that we are giving you back. So there are a bunch of different revenue streams that we are trying to build, because we are basically learning from some of the failures of the other digital banks who rely heavily on FX revenue only. And during the pandemic, it was a struggle because nobody was traveling. So all the banks, digital banks especially, were struggling, and crypto was kind of their I would say, fallback option. But at the day-to-day banking level, there was no other way to make money.
Crypto seems to have soared in recent days with the new Omicron virus.
Yeah, it has.
Is that benefiting Novus in any way?
So pandemic in general has helped more on the digital adoption side, because people are now a lot more open to using apps for their finances than they were before. But in terms of the crypto world, currently we're not planning to offer crypto trading features, just because we are still trying to see what the environmental impact of crypto is. I don't know if you know, but mining Bitcoins or mining other currencies are a huge energy issue. So we don't want to support that yet. But because we have got a whole impact coin mechanism, in the future, we might see if we can have our own crypto coin. Who knows? But it's more on the future roadmap than.
I was talking to some crypto miners the other month, and it seems that they've one particular person that I know, he's converted something like 4 rooms in his house with servers and leads and wires absolutely everywhere, and it's running 24/7 just to get that one sort of crypto, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is completely not sustainable by any stretch.
Like there are more and more cryptocurrencies that are trying to solve for that problem. I used to work for Ripple, which is XRP, which is slightly better in terms of energy usage than some of the other top currencies. But yeah, I can see there are more and more coming into the market every day.
There doesn't seem to be a lot of women in the finance sector. Do you think there's more room for female founders?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are like a lot of fundamental issues why there are not as many women as there should be. But I especially in the growth and marketing phase, I see a slightly better gender diversity than other parts of the business. But in terms of founding and founders, again, if you just look at all the fintechs, it's very male and it's very white. So there's a general lack of diversity when it comes to founders in fintech. But yeah, there's definitely room. We see investors also being interested in funding startups that are founded by diverse people. So yeah, there's no doubt that there's room.
So how do you think companies out there are approaching diversity and inclusion, especially regarding the topic of gender?
Yeah, so that's something I quite strongly feel about, because I don't think companies are doing enough for having, I think on the interviewing and hiring side, yes, they're trying to hire more people, but in terms of making them feel supported after they join, the company policies are still just talking about women, for example. A lot of tech companies don't have a great maternity package. And that's like a very basic thing that companies can do if they were serious about diversity and inclusion. And then again, like the company culture itself, there's a certain way of communication between how females would talk versus males would talk. Do males have the awareness to change their communication style depending upon who they're talking to? And that's something that women have to deal day to day. So there's not enough work that's happening in terms of the company benefits and culture side. There's a lot more happening on the hiring and recruiting side. So the other part needs to catch up.
Yes, indeed. I think first of all, companies need to empower their current employees at a grassroots level.
Especially at the back of the pandemic, so many women have to quit their jobs because of childcare. If only companies supported some childcare benefits to keep women employed and give them some extra room to be able to have a career and still be the primary child carer, then it would be a much different environment. So I don't know, there was one research that said that we have gone back to like the 1990s after pandemic when it comes to women in the workforce, just because so many women have left their jobs over the last year. So it's going to take a long time for us to level up again. And as a founder, I want to make sure that when we get to that stage, right now we're a small company, but as we start scaling and employing more people, I want to make sure that women especially feel supported to be able to have a full-on successful career and still be able to manage their childcare and whatever other needs there are.
Especially with COVID. I've just been reading just alone today, there was over 200,000 children off school just last week.
Yeah.
Predominantly, it's going to be the woman that's going to have to take time off work. That's going to have an impact with many bosses because there's just no inclusion there. How would you at Novus tackle that?
Yeah, so I feel like there are certain countries that do a much better job of, in terms of like having the right policies in place, but there are also a lot of tech companies that have done a decent job. So as like the first one that comes to my mind, because my partner works there, is he works at Spotify, and they had a 6-month paid maternity leave, and like 6 months paid paternity is unheard of in the UK.
Absolutely,
and because of Swedish, they have like more like Nordic laws that they follow as a global policy, which is great on their part. And also like Google, for example, has some great benefits. So I'm looking at some of the leaders in the market to have our policies kind of match up to that, at least. So having a healthy paternity package is kind of very basic. And then we have some care days. So I think we've got 15 or 20 care days in a year that somebody can take if they were to care either for a child or for elderly, whatever that reason is. And obviously we've got holiday sick leave, but we're trying to give some more extra days so people feel like they can manage their personal life without having to feel judged or underperforming at work.
I think having, packages like that in the company, I think that's key to actually growing a business, and it's a key part for a business model. What other areas do you think is key to growing a business?
Especially in a startup, because we don't have as deep pockets as some of the other bigger players. So we can't really compete with the top salary paying player in the market and match up your salary from a different offer. But to attract top talent, what we can offer is extreme flexibility. And that has been especially true for me personally as well. Like I wouldn't have been able to be a founder and be leading growth and marketing at the company if I didn't have this flexibility option over the last 12 months, because I've got a 16-month-old daughter myself. So being able to manage her schedule and work and get a business up and running was quite challenging if I remove the whole flexibility aspect. So that's going to be key. Like you choose your hours, on what days, which hours work best for you. Just make sure you're over communicating with your teammates. As long as the work is getting done, we don't care which days you're working, which days you're not working. We are very focused on results driven. So I think that will be another aspect that we can, as a smaller company and a startup, offer to potential employees.
Well, I think that's quite key for many businesses at the moment, especially given the fact that I can't see any way out of the pandemic anytime soon.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs trying to set up their businesses?
I would say it's prepare for the long run, because it's a lot of hard work starting a new business, but there's a lot of up and downs along the way, and it can really impact your own emotional need. So just prepare. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Somebody said it to me, and that just stuck in my head. That just take every day at a time. There will be some failures along the way. Just learn from it, move on. Don't give up, because there's so much you can do in terms of market opportunity that's coming up. So yeah, keep going.
I was speaking to an entrepreneur a couple of years ago, a chap called Marco Robinson, who's very successful. And his analogy of an entrepreneur was jumping off a cliff, building an aeroplane on the way down and flying off into the sunset. I thought that was quite key, quite apt, but anyway, but don't jump off a cliff, of course. What are the 3 things that you and your colleagues are looking forward to in 2022?
We are really looking forward to just getting as many people as possible to use our app in the UK, give us their very valuable feedback, what they like, what they don't like, how we can improve. And then also start planning our first international market, wherever that is. There are a few shortlisted we're already talking to a few different partners in different countries, but getting our app tested and tried in the UK as much as possible, launching investments, for example, as another feature within the app, and then taking it international would be kind of the main thing I'll be looking forward to. And obviously growing the team will be also very exciting, because we're about 30 right now. To get to where we want to get to by end of 2020, we will at least double, if not more.
Okay. Well, Shruti, I wish you and your colleagues the very, very best. And it sounds amazing. And that draws us a close to Meet the Entrepreneur series. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.